Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where I'm kind of treading on old ground, but I'm going to cover the changes I would like to see for the next edition of Kill Team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Do you agree or disagree? Are there any other changes you would like to see as well? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, an affiliate link at Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But let's get on with the video. Yeah, so I actually made this video 18 months ago, probably when the new edition was probably started, because I'm psychic. But people have been asking me what I'd like to see change for the new edition, even after linking that video. So I thought I'd update it, especially based on what we've been shown so far for Kill Team Hivestorm and Kill Team 24. Because, you know, it's 3rd edition, 2024. We had Kill Team 18, Kill Team 21, now we got Kill Team 24. So yeah, I'll be treading some old ground, but with some new points. So it's not just old stuff, and I'll be skipping stuff we've already covered. Well, I've already covered. But anyway, let's just get into it. So first off, originally I wanted digital rules, but we've basically got digital rules, free digital rules. I wanted those as well. So we've got free digital rules confirmed for on launch and likely to continue as the edition goes on, which is great. And all I'd like to add to that is just an app. You know, they could work it in to combine it with the 40k app. And I know people don't like the GW apps, but I think, you know, if we just have everything in a collated place, that's really cool. So you could have an app that maybe is just an extension of the 40k app or Kill Team's own app, which basically logs your Kill Team collections, the collections of Kill Teams you have, their rules, and just any other like quick reference tools you need. So effectively you can go like, oh, I'm playing Commandos, so here's my Commando roster. This is the operatives I'm selecting for the game. And these are all my rules. I just tap on my operative. Okay, I've got the rules here. And here's the full PDF document attached and updated on the app, because everything would be free. You know, it would be really cool and handy. And effectively, it would hurt all those third-party apps that we have at the moment, you know, that kind of track everything. But it'd be nice to have something official all in one place, and also have support for like tracking mission and tournament scores, not even like just stats, but just like, okay, now I can use it to score my games, all just combined in one place, because that would be really useful and just mean like we wouldn't need anything unofficial, as long as it's free or at most very, very cheap, but free for the rules. That'd be really useful and just be very helpful. So you don't need people checking external sites mid-game, and it's just nice to have it all officially in one place, especially on your phone, instead of just going through the Warhammer community download section. Next, we're partially already getting this, and I've covered this point before, but standardized movement. So we've moved away from shapes, so we're back to numbers. Shapes are gone. If you're scared of shapes, you're good right now. But numbers. So numbers are really important because they help us count, but also because now we can have standardized movement values. So before, factions were limited to like 3 white movement or 2 white movement or 4 white movement, which was nice at first, but then quickly, because they never expanded upon using shapes of white, it kind of limited movement and made factions very granular. But now we've gone back to numbers, we can have more expressive movement values related to factions and operatives. For example, you could have all human factions movement 6, so they all move 6 inches, right? That's cool. But then for the slower factions, 4 inches is too slow, but 5 inches would be enough. For example, you know, all the Leagues of Votan kill teams could be 5-inch movement, and the Necron kill teams could be 5-inch movement, so that would help a lot. But then you can also bring some granularity to it, because in 40k, orcs move 5 inches instead of 6, because they're tougher, and so more dense or slower. So you could make Commandos and all other orc races move 5 inches as well. And then you can also have all Eldari models and kill teams start off with 7-inch movement, and that would have some really nice interactions, for example, like with Hand of the Archon, where if they take their drug dealer, effectively, Elixicant, his Hypex drug, which gives everyone +1 movement, would suddenly make everyone on that kill team 8 inches of movement, which would be really, really cool, because all of a sudden you have a hyper-fast Eldari team that separates Hand of the Archon from the other 7-inch move Eldari teams, and that would be really, really awesome. I like how Kill Team is already a good expression of how individual races and operatives can be, but now we have a granular movement system, as in using numbers, we can represent a faction better with their movement characteristic, because we already kind of cover it with their movement, wounds, I mean, with their wounds, armor save, and how they hit in combat and shooting. So having that standardized would be great. Next is making flamers good. Actually good. All right, they had some niche in current edition of Kill Team in Into the Dark because they gained lethal 5 up, but I would like flamers to be made better. Like, you can reword the torrent rule. I don't care what you do. My suggestion would be you give them, basically you combine, you kind of remove torrent, but give them indirect. So basically they can shoot at you while, even if you're in cover. Give them splash 1, right? So you give them everyone within 2 inches takes 1 mortal wound, and then you can also give them no cover. So there's still, you'd have to rework other flamers in the game to balance that, but all flamers would suddenly be 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, 2 damage, but for every crit you rolled, you'd do a mortal wound of damage to the target and every enemy operative within 2 inches. So it represents fire better than we have now, where you have this weird scenario where people can't be targeted by flamers because they're behind cover and concealed, or you have 3 operatives together, but because they're all not within 2 inches of each other, you can only target 2, or it's just torrent doesn't really work at the moment. So making flamers better, like, obviously I'd prefer my way, because all of a sudden flamers become really good at finishing people off, but also chipping people around them, instead of kind of just hoping the opponent mispositions and you kind of maybe flame 2 operatives. But making flamers better in some way would be really good, just because they're fun weapons. And I've always loved them when they had templates, but templates seem to be taboo at the moment. So unless they, make torrent a better mechanic, I would just like indirect splash, no cover. Simple fix. The next one is Fusilade. So Fusilade isn't good. The only current good niche it has is how it gets around the Get Down Mr. President attack ploys, because how you split the dice. So the way I would prefer Fusilade to work, once again, this is just retreading old ground, is to make it work like the Avit special rule from Commandos. So the Avit special rule is it's 6 attacks normally, hitting on 3s, 2/2, mortal wounds 2. But if you spend a second AP to shoot with it, it goes down to 4 attack dice, and you pick the target and everyone within 2 inches, and you shoot each of them once with 4 attacks. So you kind of go into a blast shot, but it's not a proper blast shot because they all have to be valid targets and you're trying to shoot everyone. So the way I'd make that, every weapon with Fusilade, for an extra action point, can -2 from their attack dice to target everyone and the original target. So that's within 2 inches of the original target. Because if you look at heavy bolters and shuriken cannons, they're all 5 attacks, 4/5 with whatever special rules. But then if they wanted to use that blast shot, if your opponent's kind of mispositioned, you can then go to 3 attacks, 4/5 with like P1 or rending. But now you're hitting everyone in that area of effect. But then it also makes 6 attack dice weapons more lethal, because when they use their Fusilade shot, they would go down to 4 attacks, but 4 dice still really good. 3 dice you get a bit iffy, but that's why those guns hit harder. But I think just reworking Fusilade to make it a better rule would just be more fun and make it a more useful weapon, because you see weapons with Fusilade and you go, that's a special rule I'm basically never using, which is really unfortunate because it's on a lot of cool weapons. So making it just a more interactive and better rule would be better for everyone as a whole. Next, this one is going to get people upset, so please, it's just my suggestion. Removing Faction Tac Ops from at least competitive play. You can keep them in narrative. I think narrative Faction Tac Ops are completely great. So my only thing for this is, while Faction Tac Ops have been fun in Kill Team 21, they've been completely unbalanced. They are either pointless, as in too hard to score, or easy max faction tackle points. And the problem is you have factions now that are really good, but they don't have any good faction tac ops, so they're relying on the universal tac op archetypes. Or you have factions that already have really good universal archetypes and then have easy auto score faction tac ops. And when you look to games like Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar, they've effectively removed their faction tac ops, like their faction secondaries, and just had general universal secondaries, just because it's also too hard to balance. Because if you look at the moment, we have 16 tac ops from the universal archetypes, because all 4 archetypes have 6 tac ops each. At the moment, each kill team has 3 faction tac ops, and currently we have at least 30 factions. So that would be 90 tac ops for Games Workshop to look and rebalance. Now you could cut them down to one per faction, but I think they're just better as a narrative element. And tying into that, I would like more regularly and rebalanced Universal Tac Ops. So it sounds like we're getting new Universal Tac Ops every year, which is a step towards that. And I think if we just had better refined Universal Tac Ops, like they go, okay, this Universal Tac Op is doing too well, so we'll just errata this, we'll tone it down a bit and then wait for the next one next year. Instead of the state where we have now, where we just kind of hope Universal Tac Ops are maybe changed, while Faction Tac Ops are just abandoned or banned, depending on the kill zone, but that's more kill zone dependent. And I know people say it loses a lot of flavor, but that's why I think it's fine to remain it as a narrative element. But for competitive play, I don't think we need Faction Tac Ops. And based on what's happened for Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I can see it happening for Kill Team. Next, I'd also like some more interesting missions. So I would like loot to go. I don't think people will miss loot, but I would also like less objectives. So it looks like we're only going to have 3 objective tokens per map, which kind of mirrors Spearhead from Age of Sigmar. I would like 5. I think 5's a nice number because then it basically gives you and your opponent 2 each, and the central one you fight over. I think odd objective numbers are always better than even, because even encourages more stalemating, whereas odd actually encourages more aggressive play and can still lead to draws. Because the interesting thing, when we used to play Kill Team 21 on the first year, most of the missions actually had 5 objectives. So you'd have this interesting scenario where the 5th objective in the middle was actually generally a draw. So most people actually didn't score it. Or even if they did, they only held it for 1 turn, then it switched back. It was very back and forth, but it offered more interesting dynamics to gameplay. So hopefully we go down to 5 objectives, but it looks like probably 3 from the token sheet. And then more interesting missions. Like, while I like capture and secure, don't like loot, but I would also like missions we had like escalating hostilities in the first edition of, well, Kill Team 21, where you had 6 objectives going down to 4, then going down to 2. And, when we had one of the missions where we could pick up objectives and move them around, something like that, just to make the pickup action also more useful and just make missions more engaging. Because while it's nice to hold areas of the kill zone, just perpetually either like looting, securing or capturing gets a bit stale from time to time. So I really liked how the season 1 of Kill Team 21 had really dynamic missions. It had some bad missions. So don't use the bad missions like, the bad ones, because I've forgotten their names because they were so bad. Remember, it was like the one with 4 objectives and one was turned off every turn. Don't bring that back, but just some more interactive and interesting mission types. Next, we have the tweaking of obscuring. This is something I should have mentioned at the start of the video, but I forgot. Obscuring seems to be clearing up, as well as how cover interacts. And this is kind of something I want to expand upon. So currently the main turn off and barrier to entry to people is actually the cover and obscuring rules, because firstly you'll need a line laser, and then the obscuring rules are very confusing until you figure them out. And then also non-reciprocal shooting. So basically where someone can shoot you, but you can't shoot them back. Every time I've seen that or done that to a new player, they get very frustrated clearly, and then either learn how to adapt or just get very frustrated by it and just can't get past it. Because the best way they've explained to me is like, I can see you, but I can't shoot you. As in, I can see most of your base, but I still can't shoot you because of this angle. And I'm like, yeah. So the way I would like obscuring to be changed, I've already mentioned this before, but it mirrors how it works on Into the Dark. If you're engaged but obscured, so you're more than 2 inches from heavy terrain, you are -1 attack dice to be shot at, because it represents you engaging and leaning out to take a shot instead of just standing in the open shooting. Because you're still harder to shoot, but doesn't mean you're impossible to shoot. It mirrors how it works on Into the Dark when you're shooting through engaged operatives, and it no longer basically means you're immune to being shot. But if you're concealed, it works exactly the same way as it does now. So if you're concealed, it's fine, because as a concealed operative, you're trying to sneak around, be sneaky, silent. Obviously, this is a buff to silent weapons, but we don't have many silent weapons anyway, and none of them are too crazy. But it just tones down to like, oh, I can get an angle on you because I've just moved an inch out. And then also into that tidying up how being in cover works, I think, and line of sight. So I would like it to work a bit more like how it does in Necromunda, where you have to see the whole model, like the majority of the model and the base. Or like, if you can't see the base, you can see most of the model. Because the cool thing about Necromunda, if your gun is sticking out or like the corner of your model, you can't be shot if most of it is behind cover from that angle. Whereas currently we have in Kill Team, if you have an engage order, if your finger is sticking out, your cape, the corner of your cape, the top of your flag, your elbow is sticking out, you can be fatally shot and eliminated. So having that tidy up would be really cool, just because, you know, even bringing in like volumetric shapes in terms of silhouettes would be cool. So just tidying that all up, because people find the like how our obscuring works very confusing, and especially non-reciprocal shooting. Interestingly, when I've been talking to competitive players, some of them have been like, oh, I want that to stay in. And I'm like, no, it's actually really bad to help grow the game, because it still is quite complex to learn. And then also it's not really showing too much skill. It's just getting odd angles. And it is quite thematically breaking when you're literally standing in the open, shooting at someone else who's either behind cover or in the open, but they can't shoot you back just because of the slight angle. So just changing that all would make it easier to play the game, but also get more people in, or not really reducing the competitive depth too much. It's not like every game is like won and lost based on obscurity and non-reciprocal shooting. You would, as long as you're still playing concealed, you'd still be safe from obscuring, but that change would be really, really good. Now, I've already covered this change as well, but a new compendium, I'll cover this in the future, but basically all the current season 1, 2, and 3 teams combined in a single book. So that's the new compendium, right? Season 1, 2, and 3, all those bespoke kill teams in one place. It looks like it's going to be a free digital rule as well, but just having that as a compiled resource, maybe call it the 2025 annual, because then it would be really good for people to get into the game, but just call it compendium, like, or whatever name, just a nice collated place. Because once again, it helps a barrier for entry. And the cool thing is having that all in one place, people go like, oh, I'll buy it for like, I have a few kill teams, I'll buy that. And then they'll go like, oh, you know, I've got these kill teams, but this kill team is really interesting and I've never got it before because I never bought their rules. But obviously this would all be available free online as well, but just allows more people to see factions that they wouldn't have before and have all factions in one place. It's also better as a practice tool because now you go, everything is literally in one place. So I think combining all the season 1, 2, and 3 teams into a single compendium for everyone to use at the start of the new edition would be great. And it looks like that's already happening in terms of all the rules will be online for free and we're getting cards for that. So that's great. Now next is toning down grenades. Look, we all love grenades, right? Grenades, they're explosive fun. But the main problem with grenades is how they all just hit on freeze. So the problem, frag and crack grenades all hit on freeze no matter what. So you have this weird situation where guardsmen are more accurate with grenades than they are with their normal gun. And you can have also weird situations where, let's say you put your frag grenade or crack grenade on your sergeant who hits on 2s. Now they go down to hitting on freeze. I would prefer it if grenades hit on the operative's ballistic skill, because then all of a sudden it balances out a lot more. Suddenly, you know, horde teams get a lot less oppressive when their grenades are hitting on 4s instead of always hitting on 3s, usually with rerolls, and more elite kill teams, especially if you suddenly go like, oh yeah, I'm going to put the crack grenade on my leader because my leader hits on 2s. So now your crack grenade hits on 2s. It would just make grenades a bit more fairer and more balanced to play into. And it would also operate more risk and reward because a lot of grenades need like have 6-inch range. So all of a sudden to be within grenade range, if you're using your leader or someone who hits on better ballistic skill, they're now getting closer to the enemy, which means you're more likely to lose them in a trade. So it just makes it fairer, because at the moment it's just really weird how you've got operatives who hit on 5s or 4s suddenly picking up a grenade and going like, now I'm super accurate. Because, you know, people are like, oh, frag grenades and grenades are easy, just throw them. But you still have to have the arc, the training. Like it's not just simply as throwing them just because like they're just thrown objects. They're not. You still need to prime them, all that kind of stuff. And it would just make interactions a lot more fairer. Would help elite teams passively, but I think that's an important thing. And it just makes it fairer. So I think that would be cool and a nice change. And then the last thing I would like to see is help for elite teams. Look, I'm not saying we need elite teams to dominate the game, but I don't like where they are at the moment, where they are not great. Elites are still like okay, but they are massively outclassed by operatives that outfight them in terms of hordes, so outnumbered. So there's ways around this. And it's quite complex because the problem is if you buff elite teams too much, suddenly you get into the situation where we had at the end of season 1, season 2 of Kill Team, where elites were just dominating the game because they were too durable, too tough, and too killy. So you don't want that, but you don't want the situation where we have at the moment where they're still quite killy, but they're more glass cannons than being like durable tanks. You know, what, like how they're supposed to reflect. So what I'd like to see is all elites being minimum 13 wounds, because that changes the breakpoints a lot. And you can see how being 14 wounds helped intercession so much. And making them 13 wounds minimum for elites really is a nice way to increase their breakpoints in terms of how much damage is needed to kill them without pushing them to intercession levels. So intercession are still 14 wounds, they have the most, but all other elites are 13 wounds. Right? You know, leaders would be 14. That's kind of fine. I did toy around with the idea of giving them maybe armor of contempt. So like Astartes, so Chaos Space Marines and Space Marines treat AP as one less. So AP2 would be AP1 and AP1 would be AP0. But everyone I talked to that about, even making it as like a strategic ploy, didn't like it. So I guess that wouldn't be good. And then I think another way to granularly change is because the main problem you go like, oh, a plasma gun, for some reason, you have it with bolt weapons. Astartes weapons are generally more killy because they're larger, bigger, more damaging compared to normal weapons, especially carried by normal humans. Like an Astartes bolt gun is very different to a human bolt gun. And I think you can represent that better in Kill Team. So the way I would have it is Astartes plasma guns are still 5.6 AP1, and when they get hot, they go to 5.6 AP2. But if they're in a human's hands, maybe they go to 4.5 or 4.6, something like that, because their normal human weaponry should be weaker. And all of a sudden you now have this where like a plasma gun will do less damage as a human unless they roll hot, literally, whereas Space Marines would naturally better, and Space Marines are still good at killing Space Marines. And you can reflect it in melter guns as well, making the Astartes weapon the baseline and the human ones like slightly weaker. And that wouldn't really affect Eldari weapons like Xenos weapons, because you can already see like ions are slightly different for Tau, and even plasma weaponry for the Votan is weaker in terms of base damage than we have for Imperium weapons. So reflecting that in the normal Horde kill teams would be great as well. Because the main problem you have in this elite player, you run into Vet Guard, they have a plasma gun, a plasma pistol, and a melter gun. Those three weapons will generally kill any elite they shoot at. But if you tone them down to 4.6 or 4.5 and maybe cap their AP, but I think going from AP1 to AP2 if they go hot is still fine. Also making going hot more damaging, like maybe increasing it to 4 mortal wounds. Just separating that weapon differential from a human and an Astartes would be really cool, because it makes sense. And as I said, you still have elites really good at killing elites, and they're still great at killing everyone else, but you don't have this scenario where now it takes more than just a lone vet guard with a plasma gun or a melter gun just to delete a marine, because they can take both, and it helps with balancing weapons as a whole, because then you can go like, oh, maybe it's fine for them to take all these plasma weapons, or like, you know, like all these special weapons together, because their special weapons are now weaker but still killy. Like, you don't want to remove the killing edge, because that's why I was thinking maybe 4.6 is better than going to 4.5 for normal plasma versus human plasma. But those are like lore justifications which make sense. I know some people want granularity across all weapons, but all weapons are not made the same. That's such a weird sentence. But it makes sense, because as I said, in the lore, Astartes weapons are generally better. So it all makes narrative sense. And then one last thing I'd like to see is a change to Overwatch. So the biggest problem I have with Overwatch at the moment is it really punishes a lot of operatives, because you just stop it by getting charged, and it doesn't really make sense for a Space Marine to go, I'm going to shoot you now. Oh, but you've charged me. I'm a refined gentleman, so I will abide by this. So I would change Overwatch to React, and what React would let you do is either do a free dash action, a fight action, or an Overwatch action. So basically, if someone was trying to charge you to stop you overwatching, you could fight them instead, because even if a guardsman charges a Space Marine could still punch them, and it just makes it more interesting. And like with that dash action, it can like, you can now plan to go, I'm going to get out activated, but now I can move up the kill zone. So it's just really, really cool. I think it'd be really fun. Makes it better for elites, but it makes it more thematic as well, because if you can shoot and someone charges you, you're not just going to stop shooting. Obviously, you're not going to fight if you're a dedicated fighter, but it's just really interesting. I think it'd be a nice addition. So for the overview, I'll just quickly summarize everything again. So I'd like a free app with all the rules collated in one place where you can log your kill team collection and then also maybe use it to track it for game scores. So you can log it to track what you're doing for your mission, primary, tournament, submit all that. That'd be really cool, because then it would just be really nice to be able to reference and collate everything in one spot without having to also go to the Warhammer community website all the time. But also having all the rules free is great. Standardized in movement values, because now we've gone back to movement numbers. So, you know, you can have Votan, slower races, movement 5, normal races, movement 6, and faster races like the Eldari, movement 7, because they're better representation of how races are in kill team. Then, you know, making flamers better. I would like them to have indirect splash and no cover, but just making torrent good would be great. Making Fusilade better. So I would like it to work like the sniper boy Avid rule. So if you're shooting at everyone within 2 inches of the target, you go -2 dice. So if you're a 5 attack weapon, you go down to 3 attacks. If you're a 6 attack weapon, you go down to 4 attacks, and it's an extra AP to use, just because it makes Fusilade a more interactive and better rule. Removing Faction Tac Ops and making General Tac Ops more better and more regularly balanced, just because Faction Tac Ops add to a lot of bloat to the game and are very unbalanced. Leaving them for narrative is fine, but I don't think we need them for competitive play. Then also reducing the number of objectives we have and introducing more type of missions to play. So maybe like 5 altogether, and getting rid of loot. So I'm not saying going down to 3 objectives. We're probably going down to 3 objectives, but I would prefer 5. Just a nice odd number and more interesting mission types, like getting rid of loot and maybe bringing stuff like escalating hostilities back, or stuff, just like new interesting missions. That'd be really cool. Then a Compendium 2.0, where all the bespoke teams from season 1, 2, and 3 are combined in one book, as well as being free online, just because it's nice to have all the rules in one place, and it's an easy reference tool and may encourage people to pick up teams they haven't played before. Standardizing grenades. So instead of grenades hitting on freeze, flat, they hit on your faction's ballistic skill or the operative's ballistic skill. So if you gave them to someone who hit better, all of a sudden a grenade would hit better. But as if you put it on like a normal gunner, like a normal operative, they hit on 4s, like if you're faction, like if you're vet guard. But if you put them on your sergeant, they suddenly hit on 2s, but then you've got this risk reward. I think that would be a nice change. Then also buffing elites, so basically making them 13 wounds minimum, and then something else to buff them. I would personally like a difference between Astartes weapons and normal weapons. So Astartes weapons stay the same as they are now, but you make like normal human plasma 4/6 or 4/5 to notice the difference between an Astartes weapon and a normal human weapon, to make them more durable and less weaker to hordes, while keeping them good at killing each other. So elites can keep elites in check, and horde teams have to invest more into killing elites instead of just throwing one operative to trade for one elite. And then my final change would be making fly better. Just make you pay for your movement going up and down. So basically you pay for your diagonal movement going up, but also you still ignore terrain and, you know, like traversable terrain and operatives in the way, but you still have to finish in the valid spot. So it tones down fly while still keeping its strength, mirroring how it works in Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar. Well, Warhammer 40,000 at least, without making it crazy broken where it is now, because you pay for infinite height or going downwards. And those are my changes, right? I would like to see more, but I think that's just me being nitpicky and probably going way too in depth. But I think these general changes would make the new edition even better than it already is. Oh, and I also forgot tidying up obscuring. It was tidying up obscurity and being in cover and like line of sight visibility. That's also very important, because it minimizes the barrier to entry to the game, getting rid of the non-reciprocal shooting, making being obscured well engaged -1 attack dice to be shot, while if you're concealed, you're still completely the same. But yeah, all these changes, really great, makes it easy to get into the game, less bloat, makes it more refined, makes it more fun, thematic, more representative of the narrative, while still being the core competitive game and what we love at the moment. So that's it. A lot. And there's probably going to be more changes. We'll see how much I was right. It'd be nice. This is just me guessing, right? I'm not a playtester. So this is what I'd like to see. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. What changes would you like to see for the new edition? Is there anything I missed? Or, you know, do you like my changes? Let me know. Be interested to hear. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, an affiliate link at Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crit, I have Tom, Super Cow, Stephen, Sam, Nick, Mr. Meatwad, Mercenary Q, Lucas, John Thomas, Graham, Dave Meets World, Dad of Goldens, Chris, and then for my veterans of the crit, I have Sam Jizz. Thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, I'll be back with more videos soon. I'm actually toying how much I can increase my output by. It basically depends on what articles we get and what cool things I can think of, because I don't want to like just pump out videos every day for no reason. I'll try and think of relevant stuff, but I'm really hyped for the new edition. But I need to see the new edition and it to be out before I can like properly go crazy. So I'm just like brainstorming. I'm so hyped. I'm trying to get all my kill teams done. I think I have like 6 left. I'm currently painting a compendium team. Don't worry, I use my time wisely. But yeah, no matter what happens with the next edition of Kill Team, there's still always a chance to win as long as you can roll a crit.